Hey everyone, I wanted to share with you how to manifest with macros. I'm really excited to share this with you because this has completely changed my life with how I experience life. And I think a lot of times, especially when we're learning about manifestation and the law of attraction and finding out that we get to create the life of our dreams, is we expect that manifestations are always going to be about, can you create a thing? When really manifestation starts vibrationally with an impulse, with an idea, or with a feeling that then in our conscious mind, our 3 to 5% of our brain is that then the job is for that part of our brain to interpret what we are experiencing. And the funny thing about manifestation is that when we experience something that we don't like, otherwise known as contrast, it's actually there for us to have the opportunity to sharpen even more of what we want. And a lot of times when we're focusing on manifesting something and something really shitty comes into our experience, we're thinking that we're doing it wrong, or that we're doing it wrong, or that we deserved it. Like there's still something else for us to grow with. And while growth and evolution is so important for us to be focused on in our life, the bigger important part of this is to actually experience joy. That the experience of joy is ultimately the thing that we are after. And the only way to experience joy is to know what isn't joy. And so when we are focused on creating something in our life that we are thinking is going to give us joy, like our dream body, and then we experience something that is not joyful in regards to our body or what we think our life is going to look like in that body, we think that there's something wrong. But actually, what's happening is the thing that showed up that you don't like, that is not joy, is not that there is anything wrong or that you did anything wrong. What it is actually that your vibration, your desire to have that joy, right, is a certain vibration. That's where your mindset is. That's where your 3 to 5% of your conscious brain is. But what comes to you is not that. And the reason why that thing is not coming to you is because you didn't attract something negative. It's that you had a different interpretation of the energy. Your awareness of the desire and then attracting something into your life or experiencing something in your life that is not that is purely what would have already come into your life because that was your vibration. And it's just that because you have a focus on creating something else, that you were able to recognize that this shitty thing happened in your life, that you attracted, you quote unquote attracted. But it wasn't that you sent the signal for this joyful experience for what you want in your life, and then you accidentally attracted something bad, or that the universe was sending you something as a test. It's not that at all. It's that you had some conscious awareness of what is not part of the experience that you want. And until you realize this, that your experience is manifesting around you, your life is manifesting around you based on your vibration, and that no matter what it is that you want in your conscious mind, your 3 to 5%, the decision-making portion of you, that no matter how much you want something, your dominant vibration is going to be the thing that is going to continue to manifest in your life. And the dominant vibration comes from identity. It comes from our ages of 0 to 3, or any traumatizing event at any age that was too much for us to process. So we just checked out, and we ended up storing the information in our body because of checking out. So it was like you hit the eject button of a jet and the hatch opened above you and the parachute came out, and then the jet went and crashed, right? So what happens when that happens, because you checked out, which if it was a traumatizing event or something that was just really stressful, if you check out consciously and you don't stay there and parent yourself through it and coach yourself through it and life coach yourself through it, whatever it is, then that energy just gets stored in your body. And so then that energy really starts to accumulate and create more and more of a dominant vibration of things that you don't that don't feel good, and they're going to show up in your body either in pain or illness, and they're going to show up in your sabotage, the things that you do out of fear of success. So this is very frustrating until you understand how the energy is working, how vibration works, and how the law of attraction is just like the law of gravity. The law of gravity does not give you a tether to stay on the planet. It just is. So the law of attraction is not giving you lessons, is not giving you anything that is a punishment. It's giving you what you are vibrationally. So how do you change this? Well, I'd love to tell you. So I learned how to perceive the energy in a very strategic, matter-of-fact way. And when I realized this is what I was learning, I was very excited about it. And it really inspired me to go hard into learning how to put this together, or like teach manifestation in a very practical way through diet and exercise. So what happened was, in 2022, well, in 2020, I had severe inflammation in my lower GI tract. And it was incredibly painful to eat almost anything. I even would put my legs up after I ate because the pain would radiate into my low back. Then I had a very scary experience where I actually thought that an ovary had burst, because the pain was in the area near the ovaries, and I fell to the floor fainting, almost fainting, but like I felt the blood rush out of my body, and I had that hot sweat, and I just collapsed to the floor, and I was laying there thinking, oh my God, like, did I have a cyst that just burst? What happened? And so my mom took me to the emergency room, and they did a ultrasound. And then they called me a few days later and they said, well, you know, like, you have like a teeny tiny little cyst, like nothing that should have caused you that severe of pain. But what is there is your lower intestines. And so there's something happening in the sigmoid part of your colon. The sigmoid of your colon is it kind of like is a long tube on the side of your body that then is your rectum. And so you have these huge intestines, the large intestines, the small intestines, and then different parts of them have different names. Well, that lower part is what had severe inflammation that caused me to fall to the floor in pain. And I was at this stage in 2020 where I was not trusting the medical establishment. And so I went to Korean acupuncture and got tested for 8 different constitution types, where you learn how to eat in accordance to your weakest organ, so that your food is supporting the weakest link in your body, so that as you age, you don't die of disease, I guess. I guess that's like disease is the right word. So I go through this acupuncture process, and it turned things around for me almost immediately. Like within 3 days, the symptoms had gone away. And I stuck with that eating protocol because the pain was enough of a motivator to keep me on this very strict diet that was mostly just lean protein, no fish, no crustaceans, no greens, no berries. It was, if you looked at it on paper, you would think that I wasn't being healthy, because I stopped eating lettuce, I stopped eating broccoli, spinach, all these things that you think were healthy, but they irritated my colon. So I stuck with that diet for 4 months before I learned macros. And the macros that I learned, like, it was okay, but I don't really go about that style, because the second time that I learned macros, I loved, and it's something that I teach in the Fat Life, is of how to do macros in the way that I actually enjoy doing them. But what happened was, when I was on my extremely limited diet and I was bodybuilding 6 days a week, I really wanted to have a six pack, and I got very, 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 very close. And part of that regimen meant that I had to eat like a bodybuilder. So it was almost equal parts of protein and carbs, and then pretty low fat, so that I could get the voluminous muscle shape out of my body with the ratios of fat, carbs, and protein. Well, because I was on such a strict eating list, my carb sources were squash and melon and apple and pear and some citrus. And I had rice and sweet potatoes or regular potatoes. And if you know anything about dieting, what we want to be able to do is eat a lot of fiber and a lot of roughage so that it fills up your stomach while you're on a calorie deficit. Well, without the roughage stuff like asparagus and spinach and greens, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be hungry all the time. And I was pretty hungry all the time. And I got to a point where I would measure food. Well, I would measure takeout food. So say I wanted to have a burger, then I deconstructed an entire burger and weighed everything and then created that to be a meal because I would eat from the same burger joint. And then that way I would know exactly what I was eating, almost exactly what I was eating, since it was food out and you kind of have some wiggle room if you're not cooking your own food. But I got to this point where I was like, I am so tired of deconstructing meals. I am so tired of not being able to go out to lunch on a whim because I already have my macros set up. Because really, the most successful way to be with macros is that you know what your macros are. So you know your protein, your fat, and your carbs, but also that you plan your meals so that by the end of the day, you don't have too many carbs and hardly any fat. Because then that's really hard to figure out what it is that you're going to eat. You want to arrange your macros so that you have a meal that has an adequate amount of protein, fat, and carbs in each meal, so that you don't end up with an out of balance ratio at night, because that's like one of the worst things that happens. So I was feeling really irritated. And then all of a sudden, I started to think about all these Instagram women who love the macros, who are like, you know what? I love that I can just set the amount of fat, carbs, and protein, and I don't have to think about what it is that I'm eating. All I have to do is stay within that parameter. And so there's this cute little saying that goes, if it fits your macros. And so that means that a lot of people, there was this whole Pop-Tart craze where after a heavy strength training workout, a lot of people, this was like 10 years ago, people would be posting that they're having their protein shake, just their single ingredient protein shake, not a meal replacement, and then a Pop-Tart, because the Pop-Tart gave them fat and carbs to go with that protein after the workout. And, you know, I mean, if you're like me, you're not going to eat Pop-Tarts because they're totally toxic, because our food is disgusting in America. But it was a big trend. And the whole point was you can get into you can get into your body goals and still eat these forbidden foods. You can have cereal if it fits your macros. You can have a candy bar if it fits your macros. But really, at the end of the day, the quality of food also does matter within your ratios. So that premise is a little bit flawed. But my point is that when you're tracking macros, to be successful with it, you really have to do some planning ahead of your day. And a lot of people don't want to do that kind of planning. You have to make sacrifices. You have to make choices. You have to say no to things that you might really want to do, because it's going to pull you off track of your goal. So I'm at this point where I'm very frustrated with this. And then when I'm realizing that women all over the world love tracking macros because it gives them freedom, I was like, okay, so knowing what I know about vibration and the law of attraction, macros are not the problem. I am the problem. And so when I really investigated what emotions were behind how I was feeling about macros, frustration came up. I was frustrated. So I'm like, okay, I am going to look at the wheel of life. You can Google that. And out of all the categories of life, I'm going to look for areas that I feel frustration. And whatever category came up that was most available for me to alter in that moment. So what's really cool is that when you're working with your energy, you don't necessarily have to pick a specific thing that you're working on, because a lot of times when you set the intention that you want to change something with your energy, then what happens is the path of least resistance will present itself. So I ended up focusing on my finances. And my accountant says, you know, you should have a binder with every single month with all of your statements, and then get a scratch piece of paper and staple your receipts so that when it comes time for you to organize your taxes, you have everything in one place and it's not overwhelming. And then she showed me her closet full of her paperwork because she said, you might get audited by the IRS. So if you get audited and you hand them a binder for each year and it's perfectly organized and things match up, you're going to have a much better process with the IRS if you had not done that. So when I was feeling frustrated with the macros, I was like, okay, well, what's one of the things that I absolutely hate doing? Oh, I hate getting my taxes organized. So why don't I go work on what my accountant said? So I got a binder and I made it pristine of how I had things organized. And then I organized my spreadsheets for each year. So all I had to do was copy and paste all of my expenses and all of my income and all these things. So I'd be totally prepared. And then what happened was, wherever I worked on frustration, so in this case, it was the finances first that I worked on, the frustration that I was feeling to track the macros started to get less and less and less, because the energy of frustration is just a vibration. And it's going to vibrate wherever it is in your life. Like, it's just going to vibrate in your life. Like, there's just no other way around it. If frustration is in you, it's going to show up in your life somewhere. But what I realized when the frustration around macros started to alleviate itself is that I was experiencing the frustration with the macros because I was getting attached to the outcome of the macros, which was my dream body, my six-pack. So then I started to really realize, like, oh my gosh, we can find our energy. We can view our energy wherever it is that we're attached. So if we're attached to the dream body, then that means that we end up acting in avoidance or in an anxious attachment style to whatever diet that we are using to get us to that body. And once I could see that specific energy of frustration, and then I went and worked on it in another area of life that I don't have an attachment to, then I was able to, like, get the energy to dissipate, balance that energy, and then come back to the macros without so much resistance. So that really taught me a lot about why our manifestations get messed up, because it is out of the attachment. And we're here experiencing life separate from source in our individual bodies. And the whole point is for us to create a secure attachment within ourselves. And so once I understood that, then my relationship with everything that was going on with my body and my life really started to change. And so now, 3 years later, what has happened is I've gotten so attuned to energy that when I get the creative impulse to take myself to the next level, I'm fully supported by the universe. So for instance, I started reading about the goddess and started with the great cosmic mother. That is a very consolidated and opinionated in anger view of the patriarchy. And I shared that as I was going through that process. And I shared what I was feeling and what I was learning because I'm a manifesting generator 6-2 emotional authority. So it's part of my design to share my experiences, especially because I'm talking about experiences within the body. And the patriarchy is the foundation of the patriarchy is taking the woman's menses and removing it from ritual to uncleanliness, and taking all of the symbology of the goddess before the patriarchy and making it into evil and the devil. And there's so much symbology around feminine and female that has been turned into evil. Once you start to look at the etymology, the root meanings of a lot of the words that we have around evil and around sin. And so that was infuriating to me because I realized that we have this very deep unconscious wound that is in women that really affects our ability to connect with our bodies, which affects our ability to connect with our intuition. And that really struck me. And so the more I was reading about the goddess religion, and religion just means to bring back together. So if you go to the beginning of time and you go to the original symbology of what life is, there's something called the 𝘰𝗿𝗄, and the 𝘰𝗿𝗄 is the symbol of the snake eating itself. And eating and food are something that in symbology is about being self-sustaining. And so you know that if you're doing any of your inner work, if you're doing your inner child work, any type of inner work, you know that you've been told no one can do it for you. You have to be the one to do it. So the symbology around the Ouroboros is that we are designed to be self-contained. We are designed to be the fulfiller of our life. And so as through time goes, if this is an experience of growth and evolution, even through civilization, even through the ages and stages as we grow, then we're able to actually experience what life is, to have the separation, to have the pain, to have the hero's journey, to ultimately come back to the source within, not outsourcing our power. And this is something that's so important when you want to achieve your body goals or your dream body, because nobody outside of you can sustain the habits necessary to sustain your body. And it doesn't matter how many surgeries or how many pills you take to get to your dream body. It might not last. You might have to keep getting touch-ups. You might have to get a stronger medication. Your body might deteriorate because there's always a trade-off for what we're doing with our body. And so what I really want to leave you with is that if we are having this experience to be self-sustaining, then that means that we have to be able to look at where our energy is showing up. And for us to have a really fulfilling, joyful life, we're going to have to figure out how to notice our energy and not judge it, and then process it so that we can use it. Because what I've started to learn with this goddess religion was also that the tribes and the woman, the life of the tribe and the life of the woman was built around her menses and the moon. So when I decided to implement certain things around the goddess religion, then my energy started to attune differently. And the reason why I'm able to notice it and take the creative impulse is because 3 years ago, I took that time with the macros to see how my energy was presenting itself so that I could go work on it in another area of life where I didn't have the attachment of that goal for the six pack. And so if you're interested, like if you've already been working on your manifestation and you're like, I just don't, like, it's not working. I set a desire, I set out what I want to have happen, but then something happens. Then the easiest thing for you to do is really conceptualize that if our life experience is to figure out how to be self-sustaining, how to have the personal power, because we do have all the tools within. If you believe that you have all the tools within, then it would make sense for you to then kind of like add that next layer to it to say, wherever it is that I'm not getting the outcome that I want, then there must be an attachment to that area. And the attachment is the thing that creates the fear, because the thing that we're getting attached to is external, and everything that is external is circumstantial. And so for us to put our faith in something external, then the fear of loss is going to happen. What are they called? The transpersonal wounds: betrayal, abandonment, shame, and separation. If you're attached to the dream body, the fear of success is going to kick in. So because you're going to be afraid of all of the ways people said that you're terrible, or all the ways that you judge people who have that success that you're after. And then the fear of not enough kicks in because you're worried about, even if you do everything right and it doesn't work out, what does that say about you? And so if we're living our life looking for the external to fulfill what we are equipped to sustain within ourselves, then whatever it is that we're doing in our life, whatever type of strategy we're doing for any type of outcome, not just with your body, it's going to get screwed up, because the vibration of those unprocessed fears is going to outwit your conscious mind. It's going to bring you things that you're going to have to deal with, that's going to pull you away from your goal. And then it's also going to cause you to sabotage your own success, because you are the creator of your reality. It is your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions that are going to create things for you. So I want to leave you with this idea that whatever you are doing for your dream body, absolutely whatever strategy it is that you're using, if you're trying to eat cleaner, if you're trying to go low carb, if you're trying to be carnivore, if you're doing a shake, protocol with a multi-level marketing company, whatever it is, if you could actually observe what is happening when you're going to use those tools and when you're thinking about your dream body, if you could observe that and find a negative emotion and write it down, really contemplate it, wonder what that vibration is, where did it come from? And then look at the wheel of life, look at another area of your life where that emotion is, and then go work on that over there, because you don't have resistance over there. So it's going to be easier. And because emotions are energy and because vibration is energy, it's going to release some of the resistance that you're having around whatever diet tool that you're using to get to your dream body. And that's it. So have fun with that. Let me know how it goes. Goodbye.